Here we go. Okay, let me just fix this and we'll get right on it. Yeah. Okay. So let me bring our guest up, Anthea Spark. I saw her. She's got a Facebook page, you know. I don't know what the name of it is. She'll tell us when she gets on. But she puts out great stuff every single day. And so I sent her a note because Morgan usually does this. And sometimes I'll reach out to people. Most of the time when I reach out to them, I forget to follow up, and I apologize to everybody that I haven't followed up with. But if I've contacted you and then you wanted to come on and I hadn't got back with you, you probably need to talk to Morgan because I haven't gotten it to her. Anyway, this one I was able to get to her, and I'm really excited to be ending this day with our 5th broadcast. She's from Australia, and so this ought to be really good. So I'm excited about it. I'm a little bit tired, but we're going to figure this out. Hang on, let me. Oh, wait, you're on. Can you hear me?
Hi. Yes, I can.
What's going on? It's a pleasure to meet you. Thanks
Pleasure
for putting up with me.
Yeah, pleasure to meet you too. Thanks for having me on your show.
Yeah, absolutely. You, I don't even know how I found you, but I don't even know how that works. But you put out just, I share like 30 posts, give or take 10 a day to the Soulology group, and sometimes the Soulology One Studios page. And so I started stealing your stuff.
But steal away.
Well, yeah, it's a free universe, right?
Yeah.
So, so I really liked your frequency, and and I thought, well, let me ask her if she wants to come on, and here we are. So thank you so much for honoring us with your presence and sharing space with us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
This is like, we're almost at 1,800 episodes of this show, and I used to always ask people, when did you wake up? And I don't do it so much anymore, but since you're new and you have such a really, I don't know how to describe your frequency. Your frequency is funny. I mean, I'm going off of your posts. I mean, you've got wisdom, really raw, transparent, and just real, and you're funny. And I don't know, what's your story? I mean, did you wake up this way, or did you have like an awakening experience that was preceded by a bunch of traumas like most of us?
Yeah, bit of both. When I was 15, I remember going through that troubled teen years, and I remember buying my first deck of angel cards, and I would sit in my room and give myself readings, and that is what soothed me more than anything else. No. And then I started reading books by Louise Hay and Wayne Dyer, So You Can Heal Your Life, and Real Magic, and that's when I started to kind of explore all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But when I really woke up was when just after I'd given birth to my second daughter, Sophie.
Mm.
So I was in hospital and I had a cesarean, and I had a cold before I had gone in to have her. And so my immune system was quite weak. Anyway, on the day before I was going to be released, I woke up in the middle of the night to feed her, and I took a sip of water and it all fell out of my mouth. And I quickly picked up my phone and reversed the camera to see what was going on with my face. And what had happened was the whole left side of my face had completely collapsed and was paralyzed.
Wow.
So I initially thought that I'd had a stroke. So I called the midwife in to come and check me out. And I said, have I got a stroke? Have I had a stroke? And she said, no, I think it's a condition called Bell's palsy.
Yeah.
So she was like, don't Google it. I'm going to call your doctor. I'll be back. So the second she left, I Googled it, of course. And what I found was that, a lot of people in high stress conditions get Bell's palsy, some people who have autoimmune diseases. And then I went on to read that some people recover within weeks, others months, and others don't recover at all. And so I was like, oh, it's all right, Anthea, you're going to be that person that recovers in 2 weeks. It's all good. We got this, And when she came back, she started me on a course of steroids. And and so that was the next day when I woke up. I was waiting for my physician and my doctor to come in to assess me. And when they did, they told me it was stage 5, that I was like the worst possible. So they base the condition of it in stages, depending on how affected everything was. So my eye was wide open, my nose had collapsed, my tongue was feeling numb. So they're the things that they assess you on. So for me, I was stage 5. I was told, the physician told me, if I wanted him to, he could sew my eye shut to prevent it from being damaged, and that I had to go get a brain scan to rule out tumours.
Wow.
So that's what I was told. So in that moment, I was possibly heading down a path of dealing with tumours. I just had a baby, and I had a 20-month-old at the time as well. And when the physician told me, we can sew your eye shut, in that moment, something inside of me kind of caught on fire. I was like, did he just say that to me right now in this moment? And I thought, no, I'm not going to do that. I'll find a way to lubricate my eye so it doesn't get damaged. But in that moment, I was like, I'm not going to do anything that doesn't feel right for me.
Wow.
So off I went home with my newborn. And the next day I went to have my MRI to rule out brain tumours. I felt dead inside. I was mortified. I was like, who's going to take care of my children if I die? Yeah. So that's what I was thinking. And when the results came back clear that I didn't have cancer, I knew that the Bell's palsy was a blessing, and it had come in to teach me a really big lesson. And wow. I knew that I was so grateful. I can't even tell you how grateful I was to have a paralyzed face.
Are you serious? Wow.
Over cancer.
Now, how? Yeah. Oh, over cancer, yeah.
Over cancer, yeah.
So how long ago was this?
This was 4 years ago.
That's it. 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. So what happened?
So I initially, of course, I was scared that I wouldn't recover. And so I started to look I went and saw my GP, and he said, look, take the steroids, take the antiviral, and come back in 3 months if you haven't recovered. And I was like, what about acupuncture and alternative therapies and all of that? And he's like, there's no proof any of that works. And I said to my husband at the time, I said to him, I have to try everything. I can't just sit around waiting for 3 months. So I started to call every alternative practitioner that I could find, hoping that I would find a specialist. And I couldn't find anyone. I couldn't find anyone who could help me with Bell's palsy, who had experience in Bell's palsy. I found some people who said, I can try, but I can't guarantee you anything. And so I remember Louise Hay, her voice coming into my head going, you can heal your life, you can heal your life. And so I started with the affirmations. I knew that I had to change my mindset, that I had to push the fear aside and convince myself that I could heal. And so I would spend 2 to 3 hours a day meditating and imagining myself smiling again and being able to take a photo with my children again. And I would listen to this guy talking about your cells healing, your nerves healing. And so I'd do that every day, every single day. And probably the moment that really shook me beyond anything else was when my 20-month-old daughter, she came up to me one day and she just stroked my face. She just went like this. And she just looked at me and she said, "Oh, mama." And it was in that, "Oh, mama," that she said, she was like, what her energy that she gave me, it was like, what have you done to yourself?
Wow.
Yeah. And then she started only using half of her face. She started smiling with only half of her face, talking with half of her face. And I knew that she was going to copy every single thing that I did. And if I didn't change my ways, if I didn't turn my life around and start taking responsibility for myself and my mindset and my health and everything, that she was going to head down a path similar to mine, in victim mentality, in suppressing emotions, yeah, in not using her voice, in not being a powerful being, in not asking for what she wants, and she was going to copy me. So I was like, holy shit, I have to change everything, because these little kids are going to copy everything I do. And regardless of whether I model it physically or with my voice, energetically, they pick up on everything. Yeah.
God.
So that's what I did. I decided to change everything. And I was fortunate enough to find a homeopath when I was 7 weeks in. I found this 81-year-old homeopath, and I called him up and I said, "Have you got experience with Bell's palsy?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "Well, what are you going to do for me?" And he said, "Love," he goes, "you're going to come in, I'm going to give you the medicine and you're going to get better." And he was the first person that had confidence that he could help me.
81 years old.
81 years old.
Huh.
So I went down there and he was making up this little potion for me, and he was asking me all these questions to gather, he's gathering his information, and he was pouring all these different things into this one cup, and he gave it to me and he said, "Drink it." Within 30 seconds, it felt like there was a river running through my face. That was the first thing I felt in 7 weeks in my face.
Who was he, Merlin?
He was amazing. He was just this old man in this like dark office with all of his potions. Like it was incredible. Yeah. And he gave me all these. Nothing happened. I didn't get any function in my face, but he gave me all of these potions to take home and try. And none of them worked. And I went back again. And he's like, "We're going to keep going until we find the thing that works."
God.
The second time, nothing worked either. And I remember it was just before Christmas, and I got a package in the mail from him, and with a little note, and it just said, "Just in case." Yeah. And it had 7 bags. When I got to the 3rd bag, that's when I started to notice my first signs of recovery. So I would wake up in the morning and I would try to move my face in hope that I would feel something moving. And that morning I felt the corner of my mouth flicker ever so slightly. And I jumped out of bed like an excited kid at Christmas, and I was like, this is the beginning of my healing. Because even though I was strong and I was like, I'm going to beat this, I'm going to find a way, I'm not going to give up until I completely get my face back, there was always that fear that would creep in. They'll be like, "Yeah, but you might be that one that doesn't recover ever. You might be stuck like this for life." So I was on my way. It had begun.
Wow.
But the road to recovery was rough. It was brutal.
So you had the 7 weeks before, or whatever, before that Christmas. How long was that? Like seven weeks?
I was paralyzed in total 3 months.
And so and so that was brutal. That was brutal. I mean,
That was brutal, but then the road to recovery was brutal because I had to undo all of the damage that was done to my face in that 3 months. Yeah.
you mean like
So
like muscles atrophied and that type of, so
yeah,
you had
yeah,
to,
fibrosis. So because my face was paralyzed for so long, things began to fuse together.
wow.
Yeah. So I had excruciating pain. I couldn't go out in the cold. Like I wouldn't know if it was going to be a windy day because I would wake up in severe pain.
Mm.
Yeah. And the fluid that like flows through our body and goes down our neck and all of that, nothing, it was all trapped. It was all blocked.
God.
And so I had to just deal with it. My face was doing all sorts of things. Now, most people, when they're recovering from Bell's palsy, they go and have surgery. They have Botox. They do not allow themselves time for their face and the nerves to heal. And you just have to ride the waves. And so, as you can see now, I'm wiping my eye because it's watering. It's one of my kind of things that happens when I'm still when I see new signs of healing. I get a watering eye and then I get more healing afterwards. So I started to see I found this acupuncturist and I call him my Mr. Miyagi because he wouldn't just do acupuncture on me, he smashed my mindset. I would go to his house every Saturday morning and for 3 hours I would sit opposite him and I would listen to him tell me about how warped my perspective was on life and how I had been looking at things from victim mentality and how I was giving my power away and how I was suppressing my emotions. And I had to just swallow my pride and learn how to lay down my ego. And I literally had to learn how to live a different way.
Wow.
And so he would do acupuncture at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be a very minimal amount. But I remember this one time he stuck a needle, like I think it was right here. Oh, it was like right here, right here. And what happened to me was that it felt as if I was reconnecting to my higher self. I started spinning, right? And it felt like my higher self was coming down into my physical body. I can't explain what happened, but that is exactly what, like, I was like out of control spinning. And he goes, you're reconnecting to who you really are again.
Man. So you went to, you ran into Merlin and
Mr. Miyagi?
Mr. Miyagi, man. This is
Yeah.
like, so
Yeah.
would you have considered yourself, you know, in retrospect, compared to, say, the average person, somebody who was like deep into victimhood? Because you seem very normal. I mean, just like, and you were reading, or you had the cards at 15, and then you were reading some stuff. I mean, would you have considered yourself to be that deep in victimhood?
Well, the thing is, yes, I was, because, and this is what I teach my clients, is that between the ages of 0 and 6, we create our belief systems. We the program that we're going to live our life by is installed at that age. And so we create those beliefs based on the things we see adults do and the things we hear adults say. Yeah. And so growing up, yes, that's the kind of environment I was raised in. That was the conditioning that I had. So regardless of whether I'm a conscious being and I'm reading books and things like that, if I'm not aware of what my program is and what my belief systems are, I will always unconsciously go back to them and I will operate from them. And those beliefs, they will control anything that I'm trying to create and manifest in my adult life because they're powerful and beliefs want to be proven right.
Now, so this was in 2015, late 2015, I guess.
Yeah.
Because okay, so God, so up to that, up to the time that I thought you were flipping me off a minute ago.
Well, sorry, sorry, that's why I turned it around.
Up to the time that Mr. Miyagi put that needle in you, had you had any remarkable or unique contact with your higher self or anything that we might deem dimensional or higher dimension or higher frequency?
Not, I wouldn't say, I wouldn't, not really, not like this. You
Yeah.
know, I'd done a lot of, you know, past life regression, and I
Mm,
did all these spiritual courses. Well, actually, I did a course with Doreen Virtue and Stephen Farmer,
hmm
and it was a mediumship course. And it was
hmm
during that I had this, there was a little bit of that, but it
hmm
wasn't as profound as what I've experienced in the last 4 years.
So when that happened, when he stuck that in your finger, was it more of just a knowing and a feeling, or did you actually start to hear more clearly, directly?
Yeah, I did. Because after that, I was like, this is what I have to do. This is how I have to help people. I have to help
Wow.
people that I have to help people understand that they can convince themselves that they can get better.
Wow.
That the power of the mind, it can make you sick and it can make you well, and it can make you can become whoever you want to become when you can like control your thoughts, when you understand your beliefs, right? And that's when it all became clear, because I had done 4 years of, I studied to become a soul-centered psychotherapist, and that was based on the philosophies of Carl Jung.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
And
now this was before 2015.
that was way before I had kids.
So you were looking at the shadow and
Yeah.
looking at inner work,
Yeah.
and I guess you must have applied some of it. You would have had to. Um,
I did, but I think that when I got married, and and I had
mm,
kids, and I kind of like, I was in a bit of a, I was really happy, and you know, I wasn't really into all of that stuff. I had to have
yeah,
a break from that because it was so intense and deep,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
So I took a break from it. I kind of fell
So then you,
asleep a
so
little
then you
bit.
got a swift kick in the ass, and
Yeah.
I even hate to make a joke about it because that's an incredible story to think that you have a newborn baby and an awake 20-month-old that came and did that to your face,
Mm.
and then you're married at the time, I guess, and so from 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019. Now, when that started, like say the first part of 2016 after Mr. Miyagi, and then you started on the road to what do you call I,
Recovery.
I can't, yeah, recovery. I was trying
Recovery.
to
Yeah.
think, rehabilitation. I'm
Mm.
a little bit punchy right now. I'm glad you're talking a lot. You have a
Thank
great story. But so
you.
were you already working with people as a counselor or anything? No.
No, I was a stay-at-home mum.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you went from really being, I mean, this is like the divine feminine energy, energetic journey, isn't it? Like you're a stay-at-home mom, so it means you're dependent on your husband. You got these two kids, your health is where it was, and now your higher self steps in. And so what happened from there? Did you immediately know you were going to be working with people? Did you go to work on developing a relationship with your higher self? I mean, this is a great story because there's a lot of people waking up this very same way right now.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I did. I began to realize that the relationship that I had with myself was by far the most important one,
Yeah.
and that I needed to really love and accept myself if I was ever going to be able to help others. And this was really embedded into us when I studied psychotherapy, because
Mhm.
Carl Jung, he, you know, that quote, the wounded healer,
Mhm.
yeah, he says that if you do not heal those things within you, you will not be able to help people when they come to see you, because naturally what we do is we attract people who have the same wounds as us.
Mm.
Yeah, because we are the ones who can help them through the wound, because we understand the wound. It's not because we read it in a textbook and we got the knowledge. It's because we have lived
Yeah.
through, we own that wound. And so for
Mm.
me, it was like, I have to own my wounds. I have
Yeah.
to really take responsibility for these and understand them so I can support people. And that's what I did. I started taking responsibility for myself and my life and the past and all of that.
Now, did you
And
start did you start doing like uh a lot of work isolated alone, or like, just processes or modalities? Did you develop something or
I did.
utilize something that you had been shown,
Yeah.
and go to work every day? I mean,
Yeah, so a lot of in my work, so the way that I started was that I came up with a course, and I started to. My idea was that I was going to help people with Bell's palsy. Yeah, I was going to help them heal from Bell's palsy. That was the plan. But when I reached out to people with Bell's palsy, a lot of them they weren't there. Their level of consciousness was somewhere else.
yeah.
So I couldn't reach them. Right, I couldn't help them. So I just started to help people who wanted my help. And as time went on, I was like, okay, I'm going to work with people who are ready to do the work. Yeah, I'm going to work with people who are like ready to commit and like thrive. And I didn't want to work with people who had alcohol, substance abuse, who had been abused in childhood, who'd been sexually abused as adults. I didn't want to work with any of those people. I had a different ideas, right? But as I began to release control, and as I allowed this journey to unfold before me, I was just open. I opened up and I said to the angels, I said, send me the people who need me.
Mm.
And all of the people who would come were people with inner child wounds. Yeah. And as I began to help them, I realized that was by far the best way that I could help people. And then I would have people who would come to me with relationship wounds, issues in their relationships, which were all directly linked to the beliefs they created as children.
Yeah.
Again, inner child wounds, right?
Yeah.
And so I created a guided meditation. It's a process where I take people back to their younger self, and I teach them how to give them love and compassion and all of the things that they needed as a child that they didn't get after the trauma. So what we're doing here is we're essentially tricking the brain to believe that something different happened after the event of the trauma. Yeah, that person was now receiving love and support and whatever it is that they always needed. And so the inner child begins to feel happy and supported, and it removes the memory of stress from the body. So it's ongoing work. There's a lot of things that come after that, but everyone who has experienced that has had quite a profound transformation.
Wow. And when did you start taking clients? Was it in 2016 in that first year, or was it?
So it was late 2016.
Late 2016. So this is great information for people, not just if they want to be a practitioner or that's where they're being led, but just your whole recovery, and awakening, and then applying that, the guidance of that inner voice. That's really what it is. I think people that come on this show, I mean, I think all of us that are here, all the crazy people, that we followed that inner voice. And that's fascinating. And so I'm just curious, and again, it's and I actually feel like I have to ask you this, but just as because so much of what we go through in this process that you just so perfectly described in your own experience is like the human part of us. It's like, half the time we're going, what the hell's going on? And, and I can't get up and do this today. And of course, I would imagine that you had a little more motivation having those two little kids there. But so, I mean, like, was it always a consistent ascending slope, or did you have times when you just wanted to pull your hair out? And did you have the things that other people had, which was basically, hey, you're crazy, your family disowns you, maybe relationships breaking up and being estranged from friends and family, and being displaced from homes and things like that? Did you have all that happen as well as you were expanding?
I sure did. Yeah, I did. And I'm no longer married. I was my family thought I was crazy, breaking up my marriage and leaving my husband and moving to inner city where I moved, and beginning this process of taking my business to the next level. I sold my house. I can't tell you how many times I have experienced my heart breaking open with extreme sadness and pain. I've experienced it all. You know, the thing is when you begin to empty out your cup, right? And this is the thing about spirituality. If you want to go higher, if you want to ascend higher, first you've got to deal with this part. Yeah, you've got to empty out the cup. You've got to deal with your physical body and your emotional body. And so as I began emptying out my cup, and I took responsibility instead of blaming, I felt my emotions instead of suppressing them. Yeah, I really, really allowed myself to go deep into sorrow and grief so that I understood how to come out of it so I could help my clients. That's when I got to, underneath all that is the happy memories of the good times. And that is by far, it's so much more difficult to remember the good times than to be angry at someone. Because all that you're left with are these beautiful memories of when you were once so happy. Yeah. Wow. But I believe that this is a part of the ascension process. Yeah. And it's a part, it helps you become more humble, and it helps you forgive people, and it helps you forgive yourself. And as hard as that is all a part of becoming who you really are, and reaching higher dimensions and raising your frequency. And you know, it's all about having integrity. And for me, that has by far been the thing that has set me free more than anything else.
Wow. Are those your paintings behind you?
I didn't do them. The one right at the back is by an Australian man who's produced a whole deck of cards called Tony Salerno. Mm-hmm. And the one on the wall there is by one of my friends who's in America. She painted that.
I just wondered because I remember going through your page, and so how did you segue into that page you have? I mean, like, how did that happen?
Are you talking about my personal page or my business page?
I think it's a business page. It's
okay. Yeah. So I started that business page, Anthea Spark, Soul Centered Coach, it's called. I also have I also have another 3 pages, which I'll tell you about in a minute.
All right.
But I started that when I first started coaching, and it was doing terribly. I was getting no engagement, and it was really low. And then I met a business coach, and he said, Anthea, just keep posting. He goes, don't worry about people responding. He goes, eventually they will. And I go to him, but he goes, I'm not getting much engagement. I said to him, he goes, it's because you're not, he said, it's because you're not engaging. You need to be more engaging. I go, okay. So I started to be more engaging, and he said, become friends with people in the spiritual community. If that's where you're going, become friends. So I did. I started becoming friends with all these people. And I met one of my friends, Gregory Jones. And I remember is
he in Fuse Lights?
He's in Fuse Lights, yes.
He's cool.
And he is. And I remember when I started following his group and his page, I was like, oh my God, he's got so many followers. And then he put me on to Jessica Regan, who was in the 11/11
movement.
She's amazing as well. And I remember asking him for help one day, and I said, Greg, can you please help me, because my page is like nowhere near yours. And he did, and he gave me a kickstart. Yeah, that's what I felt. And then Jessica also gave me a kickstart as well, and they both helped my page thrive. Wow. And so since then I started another page called Healing Little You. Mm-hmm. I also have Divine Masculine Empowerment, because I'm really passionate about helping change the suicidal statistics amongst men.
Wow.
And I also have a page called What I See Is Me, which is all about twin flames, soulmates, and divine connections.
I think I saw that yesterday because I made a little note in my head, and I was actually trying to remember who it was earlier. I thought there's somebody's coming on or just came on or that's into this, and I didn't know it. So where did that part come in? You know, there's a lot of talk about twin flames. Of course, it's been distorted and all that. But I mean, how did you come across that and take that out on as part of your purpose?
Okay, because through my own experiences in relationships as well, and my own kind of interesting growth through relationships, but also because at one point I started having all these twin flames coming to me for support.
Mm.
And I remember saying to my mentor, I don't know what's going on, but all of these twin flames are coming through. And it was profound because they were coming through literally right after I had unpacked something about my own experience. And so then I was being able to help them as well. And the more I experienced the twin flame thing, and the more I understood was that twin flames would come together and have this explosive awakening. And they'll be like, oh my God, this person loves how I love. Their heart is like my heart. And where they would reflect back this beautiful love, they would also reflect back to them their deepest wounds and their greatest fears. And a lot of them have the whole point of them coming together was to teach each other how to love themselves unconditionally.
Yeah.
And that all comes back to the inner child wound again.
Wow.
So all of these things link back to the same thing.
Right. So there's a school of thought out there because obviously I'm in a sacred union, and of course my wife's been downloading this stuff for 20 years, and so we do videos on it and such. So people will ask, they'll say, how do I find my partner? you know and I guess your story is I don't know what your situation is, but basically when you clear out that cup or empty that cup, your frequency gets raised, and so it's really, like you said, it all comes back to the same thing. You're working on yourself, you're loving yourself, expanding yourself, taking responsibility and such. you know how, not just in that department with, say, a relationship, but have you seen the effects of your higher frequency in terms of what you've manifested and what your experience has become over these last couple of years?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I respect myself more, when I love myself more, I give people permission to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have had some amazing role models come into my life who have given me all sorts of deep connections that I never thought I would ever experience. Life becomes easier because I don't have to struggle for anything. Whatever I need somehow magically comes before me. People give the way that I give. Yeah. People, because the thing is too, is that we have to open up to receiving.
Yeah.
And, usually everything we want is just on the outside of that door, the door to receiving. And we have to be brave enough to open that door. And when we do, it actually makes us better givers.
Yeah, that's true.
As well. And
That's true.
So what I have found is that my life has become easier, and I trust. The more I got to know myself, the more I emptied the cup, the more I loved myself, the more I trusted myself. And so now I just trust that everything's going to be okay. I don't have to force for anything to happen.
Yeah.
It has enabled me to live in the present moment.
Yeah.
It has enabled me to really sit down with my children and look into their eyes and be there in the present moment with them. And I think that's the goal eventually, is to just be in the present moment, not in the past, not in the future, So, yeah.
So, and what kind of role has, these children are incredible. Like, we're trying to get more and more of that information and frequency out there, but they're absolutely just mind blowing, especially like, so yours would be what? Yours would be 4 and 8
4
now?
and 6. 4 and 6.
Yeah. And so what kind of role do they play in your journey? And has anything that you might have thought would have been out of the ordinary occurred over these last 3 or 4 years?
I often ask myself, where the hell did these guys come from? Because they are ultimately, they are our greatest mirror and our greatest teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm a strong believer that when we're born, we're not only born with our parents' eye color and skin color and all of that, we're also born with their emotional library. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And when our children are having a tantrum, so to speak, the way that I look at that is I'm like, what is going on within me right now that I haven't looked at? Or what is it from age 4 that I didn't express that she's now trying to express for me?
Mm.
Yeah. So, and whatever I don't heal within me right now, they're going to carry on and they're going to do the same thing in their life until someone changes that pattern. So that whole quote of when they say, when one person heals it, they heal it for all the generations before and
Yeah.
all the generations after.
Yeah.
I'm living this with my children. Yeah. And so
Wow.
I'm like, wow, like my daughters, they show me the unhealed parts of me that I need to work on, that I need to change so that they can be free from that, so that they can go off and live their own life. They come with such profound wisdom that I listen. Like if my daughter doesn't want to go somewhere, right? There's a reason why she doesn't want to go into that place. It's not because she's being difficult. It's because she has profound wisdom about going in there. She just doesn't know how to express it to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so sometimes she takes me places and I'm like, all right, we'll go this way and we'll find a beautiful gift.
Yeah.
You know?
This is what's happening. It's like and it's not regular forms of communication, like you said. We talked about it today with Martin McNichol.
Yeah. And we telepathically communicate. Like my 6-year-old, she's like, I dropped her off. I took her to school the other day and she went in to help her teacher with something and I had to go to the toilet. And I knew that when she came out, she wasn't going to see me. And she came and found me in the toilet and she goes, Mummy, she goes, I saw that you weren't there, but I heard you in here. And she goes, so I came and found you. And I'll often be thinking of a song and she'll start singing it.
Yeah.
She goes, yeah, I heard you, Mummy. So they're teaching us how powerful we are. We don't know.
No doubt. No doubt. I mean,
Yeah.
not that it matters, but I'm just curious. Have you had like since all this happened, have you had like any type of star family visitation or any strong connection or apparition or just dimensional experience, like with a particular divine essence, or that keep coming back, or teachers, or whatever you want to say it?
I'm very much connected to the angels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They're my biggest guides. I pray to them a lot, but also in 2018, right after the 11/11 global awakening, I remember going to sleep one night and I was extremely tired and I thought, oh my God, if I fall asleep now and someone could just break in and I reckon I would be dead to the world. I wouldn't hear a thing. And I remember not going to sleep. I wasn't asleep. I was in this deep state. And I remember it was almost like I heard like a car crash. I just heard this massive bang, right? And I opened my eyes and I picked up my phone and it was 11/11. And I was like, shit, I better get up and see if there was an accident outside. So I got up, I went out the front, there was nothing there. And I went back to bed. After that, I would hear knocking on my door. Yeah, often. And there was no one ever there. Then I moved to this house here at the start of last year, and I often hear knocking at my window. I traveled to Sedona last year in March, and that's when I started to see things, started to have visuals.
Yeah.
And I remember staying in a place in Sedona, and again in the middle of the night there would be knocks on my door. So I don't know who these beings are, but they've been following me around for a while.
Now, have you ever, because obviously you're very in touch with the energetic mechanics of existence, have you ever tapped into or asked, who is it? What do you want to tell me, or anything like that?
I have, but I haven't gotten the message yet.
Yeah.
Mm,
sometimes they don't give us any message. It's
mm.
like
Yeah,
like
well,
a lot of people I ask, so that they'll be like, no, they don't give this information or that information. Yeah.
sometimes I think there's a message I'm not getting, and they're just like, "Oi, come on!" Like, how many times do we have to try and get this message through? So it's almost like they're saying to me, "You're not going to sleep until you get this." Yeah,
Mm.
that's sometimes what I feel, um, but I'm
That's
not
funny.
sure yet.
That's what my wife says to me. She says, "Oi, like when are you going to get it?" No, I'm just kidding. She used to. She used to have to do that a lot. I
Yeah.
think I've gotten better. Yeah, fascinating story because it totally involves the human aspect. You know, my wife has told me since the day I met her, nothing matters, nothing means anything until you embody it. And
Mm,
so I watch her sometimes really take, that's why I asked you a while ago about, what you were saying about you really had to feel the sadness and you really had to remember these things. And I watch her sometimes, I think, God, is it that, is that, do you got to do that? But I can see now, and now it's along the lines of what you're talking about. But yeah, I mean, it's like, how do these people, like, I mean, she had her wake up, uh, basically on a massage or treatment table. I don't remember what the modality was, but it had something to do with, she had lower back pain, toxic pain.
mm,
And
mhm,
as soon as the woman put her hands on her, Merlin popped, the
mm.
apparition popped up in front of her and started talking to her and didn't leave her alone for 6 weeks.
Wow.
Um, and I think to myself, how can these people have these type of experiences and then go through this stuff? But I've learned to understand that like you said, you got to empty the cup.
Mm.
Just like you said, these couples coming to you, you unpack something, your frequency gets raised, boom, you know. Yeah. So,
Yeah. It
oh,
can
it
be
was,
brutal though, like it can be brutal, and it can be isolating, and it can be really confronting. And I think what's important, is that we understand that everyone's at a different level of consciousness.
yeah,
And often we judge others because
yeah,
they feed into fear, or they are doing other things that
yeah,
we've kind of moved past. But I think if we're all to become more united, we just have to accept and send love to everyone at their different levels of consciousness,
yeah,
because we're not all the same.
because that's right.
Yeah.
Because nobody's walking on water right now, are they? You know,
No.
but it's
Yeah.
very true. It's very true, and I know I'm as guilty as anybody. But for everything that we look at somebody else and go, oh my God, they're not awake. There's something we're totally stupid about. I mean, we just don't see it. But
Mm.
the other thing I find interesting about your story and your work is the part where you want to, or to assist in the coming out, to support the divine masculine or men. How did that part come in? Uh, was that from the angels, or was there any
I think
particular?
so.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it was from the angels, because I kept on hearing about stories of men committing suicide, and so I
yeah,
started to do a bit of research, and I read that the rates are 3 times higher in men than they are
yeah,
in women.
yeah.
And in the area that I worked in, it was just after Christmas, and one of the clients that goes to the practice that I was working from, he had committed suicide, leaving behind his wife and 2 young kids. Now it's like, oh my God, why am I constantly being shown
Yeah.
this stuff? And I realized that what I understood about my clients was that there's all these walls between men.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So men will talk to women, but they won't talk to other men. And I'm like,
True.
how are we going to break down these walls between men?
Yeah.
Yeah. And because especially here, we have this attitude of he'll be right. The man
Yeah.
goes to work and he'll be right, suck it up, you'll be all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm
Mm.
like, this has to change. And so I started a men's group,
Mm.
to encourage men to come in there and talk and express and share and support each other. And I actually met Rick, who runs He runs youth therapy, and he's amazing as well. And he taught me a lot about men and what they go through, and
Yeah.
you know, I understood it better.
Mm.
And how's this for a story? When my daughter started school, the girl that was in her class, it was her dad that had committed suicide. So one
Oh,
of her
wow.
friends, it was her dad that had committed suicide in this area, and that was confirmation to me that I need to continue this. And I don't
Yeah.
know how. I still don't know how I'm going to help men, but I'm trying. I'm trying to find
Yeah.
a way to do it.
Wow. Yeah.
Mm.
So many things to talk about. Um, no, it's really fascinating. And it's a fresh story. It's good to hear, and it's yeah, well lived. You know, big props to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, kids. I mean, they coming back from that condition. I mean, God, that's I can't even imagine how to get up out of bed every day.
I,
You
mm,
know,
I was hiding. I stayed at home for 3 months. I only left the house if I had to go to an appointment. And I
yeah,
was like, I'm going to use this time
yeah,
to be with my kids, you
yeah,
know?
and
Mm.
yourself, right? I
Yeah.
mean, universal isolation. Sometimes it comes by force.
Yeah.
You know, that's how it was for me. I was like, oh, but you learn to see the value of it, and the other thing is too is you develop that connection because you know who else is there to talk to but the universe, you know, and your higher
Yeah.
self or whatever, however you want to put it.
Yeah.
So and so, what are you? I mean, do you have anything that you've got coming up? Is there anything that you want to tell us about? I'd love to see you put your links up in the comments
Sure.
if you feel or in the Sology group or you know
Sure. I'd love to.
if people might be interested in reaching out to you or the men's group or the other pages. But is there anything you're doing that people might be interested in or that you want to talk about?
Yeah. So the main way that I work is I work one-on-one with people, and I
Hmm.
take them through a 10-week process where I help them understand themselves better.
Hmm.
I help
Hmm.
them understand what their beliefs are so that they too can change those beliefs if they're no longer serving them. So, if you are constantly finding you're having the same repetitive experiences in your life, in your relationships, with people, whatever it is, I help them go deep into that so that they can get to know themselves better. And
Yeah.
I've also got a program coming up where it's like a group workshop, a group lesson, where I help people go through everything that I do on a one-on-one basis, but it's in a group and it's a slower process. And it's really for anyone who actually wants to take the journey within and
Yeah.
begin to unpack, like in the way that I described it. So it's
Yeah.
literally everything that I've experienced, and I've put it into a program. But a lot of the stuff that I have that's a free resource is in Healing Little You, my group Healing Little You. I
Hmm.
have a whole bunch of guided meditations and lives where I help people heal their inner child.
Oh, so you do lives?
I do lives. I haven't been doing that many lately, but
Hmm.
in 2018, I did a whole
Hmm.
bunch of them and a whole bunch of guided
Yeah.
meditations and things like that. But yeah, the plan is to be more visible and do more videos on
Yeah.
Facebook and YouTube and all that. Yeah.
Do you yeah, just a couple more questions before we conclude. But I mean, do
Sure.
you ever get like what you would consider collective information or collective intel or what energies are present collectively, that type of stuff?
Yes. Yes. I have a lady that I work closely with who we kind of mentor each other. We're on the
Mm.
same page spiritually, energetically, and we feel like we get this collective information, and it comes through in such a powerful way, um, and it always comes out in my work.
Okay.
Yeah, so I post about it,
Oh,
and I
okay.
do it. I try to do it in a way where it's understandable.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think there's a bridge that we need to work on to help people
Yeah.
understand about that collective energy.
What part of Australia you in?
I'm in Melbourne.
Oh, you're in Melbourne. That's
Yeah.
where my wife was born. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
We have a pretty strong following in Melbourne.
Yeah.
For the size of the city it is, yeah, I think it's like
Mm.
6th or 7th in, in the
Yeah.
demographics. Yeah, Australia's just in general, Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, um,
Mm.
Queensland. Yeah,
Yeah.
they
I
all
have
have.
quite a big following in the States.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm hoping soon I'll be coming over there and running some of my workshops.
all right. Yeah,
Yeah.
very cool.
Mm.
So yeah, that's very cool. And yeah, I'd love to collaborate with you again down the road if you're open
Sure.
to it. And
Absolutely. I'd love to.
just explore explore more of it. And if you have anyone, you mentioned a couple of people, but so I can mix, I can mix with my agenda is to get as many people. Our agenda is to get new people, new faces on here to share their stories, just like you did.
Mhm.
So if like that gentleman you were talking about, or
Rick
anyone else,
Everett.
yeah,
Yep. Yeah. I will. I'll put you in touch with him.
yeah, just let Morgan know. Don't tell me.
Oh, okay.
'Cause I'm
Okay.
surprised you even ended up getting on here, because I have this bad habit of like reaching out to people and, yeah, I'll come on. I'd be love to come on. Then it gets buried in messages.
Okay.
But
It was meant to be.
I really, well, I really did. You were more in my head because where do you get all these memes at? I mean, I'm really good at finding them, but you're like the stuff I find on your page, nobody has. I don't know where you get them. Don't tell
Oh,
me,
well, I
and
can't give
everybody
you
will
my
know.
secrets, can
Yeah,
I?
exactly right. So yeah, well, best to you and your beautiful children and all your loved ones, and thank you for coming on and sharing space with us and honoring us with your presence. And you know, just if you would put your links so people can get in touch with you, in the comments and or in the Sology group. It's a great place to put that kind of stuff out there. So, all right.
Sure, I will. Yeah, thank you so much for having me on your show, and thank you for like dedicating your time to help raise awareness and support people.
Yeah,
You're doing a great thing.
you're very welcome. And we're all on the same team, so
Yeah,
everybody's got to bring their piece of the puzzle. But yeah, you're very welcome, and thank you very much. It was nice meeting you.
nice to
Peace
meet you
out.
too, Todd. Mwah. Thank
All right.
you. Thanks,
Take
everyone.
care. All right. Bye
Bye.
bye.